The Roman Republic's epic saga of power, corruption, and transformation shaped the course of Western civilization. Its legacy continues to influence modern politics, governance, and society. The ashes of its downfall still smolder, warning us of the dangers of unchecked ambition and the fleeting nature of greatness. In the misty dawn of the 8th century BCE, the Italian peninsula was a tapestry woven from diverse threads of culture, language, and geography. The Apennine Mountains stretched like a spine down the center of the land, separating the eastern coast from the western, where the Tyrrhenian Sea lapped against the shores. It was here, in the region of Latium, that the seeds of the Roman Republic were sown. The city of Rome itself was founded, according to legend, by Romulus and Remus, two brothers who had been nursed by a she-wolf and guided by the gods. Archaeological evidence suggests that the site of Rome was inhabited as early as the 10th century BCE, with settlers drawn to the area's strategic location at the confluence of the Tiber River and the trade routes that connected the eastern and western Mediterranean. As the city grew, it became a hub of commerce and culture, attracting people from surrounding regions, including the Etruscans, a powerful and enigmatic civilization that flourished in what is now modern-day Tuscany and Umbria. The Etruscans brought with them their advanced knowledge of engineering, architecture, and art, which would later influence the development of Roman culture. In 753 BCE, Romulus, the legendary founder of Rome, is said to have become the city's first king, marking the beginning of the Roman kingdom. This period, which lasted for over 2 centuries, saw the rule of 7 kings, each contributing to the growth and transformation of the city. The most notable of these monarchs was perhaps Servius Tullius, who implemented significant reforms, including the creation of a new constitution, the development of a system of social classes, and the construction of public buildings such as the Temple of Diana. The Roman kingdom was also marked by its complex relationships with neighboring cities and states. The Romans engaged in a series of wars with the Etruscans, the Latins, and other Italic tribes, which ultimately led to the expansion of their territory and the establishment of Rome as a major power in central Italy. However, it was not until the expulsion of the last king, Lucius Tarquinius Superbus, in 509 BCE that the Roman Republic was born. This pivotal event, sparked by the tyrannical rule of Tarquinius and the bravery of Lucius Junius Brutus, marked a significant turning point in Roman history, as the city transitioned from a monarchical system to a republic, with power held by the Senate and the assemblies. The early years of the Republic were marked by struggles between the patrician class, who dominated the Senate, and the plebeian class, who sought greater representation and equality. This conflict, known as the struggle of the orders, would continue for centuries, shaping the development of Roman politics and society. The plebeians, led by figures such as Lucius Junius Brutus and Publius Valerius Poplicola, fought for the right to hold public office, to have access to the law, and to be protected from the arbitrary power of the patricians. As the Republic navigated these internal struggles, it also faced external challenges, including wars with neighboring states such as the Etruscans and the Volsci. The Romans developed a system of governance that was designed to balance power between the different branches of government, with the Senate providing counsel, the assemblies electing magistrates, and the consuls serving as the chief executives. The early Roman Republic was also marked by its religious and cultural practices, which were deeply influenced by the Etruscans and other Italic tribes. The Romans developed a complex pantheon of gods and goddesses, including Jupiter, Mars, and Quirinus, who were worshipped through elaborate rituals and sacrifices. The city's architecture, art, and literature also reflected this cultural heritage, with the construction of temples, theaters, and public buildings that showcased Roman engineering and artistic skills. As the Roman Republic continued to evolve, the 4th century BCE saw significant developments in its governance, society, and relationships with neighboring states. The struggle of the orders, which had begun in the early years of the Republic, persisted, with the plebeians seeking greater representation and equality. In 367 BCE, the Licinio-Sextian laws were passed, which limited the amount of land that could be held by any individual, provided for the cancellation of debts, and allowed plebeians to hold the office of consul. This marked a significant milestone in the struggle for social and economic reform, as it began to address the deep-seated issues of inequality and debt that had long plagued Roman society. One notable figure who played a crucial role in this period was Marcus Furius Camillus, a patrician statesman and military leader who would go on to become one of the most revered figures in Roman history. Camillus's leadership during the Gallic siege of Rome in 390 BCE, when the city was breached and much of it was burned to the ground, helped to rally the Romans and ultimately drive out the invaders. His subsequent efforts to rebuild and restore the city earned him great admiration and respect from his fellow citizens. The Roman Republic's expansion beyond the Italian peninsula also began during this period, with the conquest of the Etruscan city of Veii in 396 BCE marking a significant turning point. The Romans' use of advanced engineering techniques, such as the construction of tunnels and siege engines, allowed them to breach the defenses of Veii and ultimately capture the city. This victory not only expanded Roman territory, but also provided a significant boost to the city's economy, as the rich resources and trade networks of Veii were incorporated into the Roman sphere. As the Romans continued to expand their territories, they also developed a complex system of alliances and relationships with neighboring states. The Latin League, a confederation of cities in central Italy, played a crucial role in this process, as the Romans sought to balance their own power with the need to maintain stability and security in the region. The Roman Republic's relationship with the Samnites, a powerful and warlike people who inhabited much of southern Italy, was particularly complex, with periods of conflict and cooperation alternating over the course of several centuries. The 3rd century BCE saw the rise of the Punic War, a series of conflicts between Rome and the Greek kingdom of Epirus, which was ruled by the renowned military leader King Pyrrhus. The war was sparked by Rome's intervention in the affairs of the Italian city of Tarentum, which had requested Pyrrhus's assistance in its conflict with Rome. Although Pyrrhus won several significant victories against the Romans, his ultimate defeat and withdrawal from Italy marked a significant turning point in the development of Roman power and influence in the Mediterranean. As the 3rd century BCE drew to a close, Rome's victory over King Pyrrhus marked a significant shift in the balance of power in the Mediterranean. The Roman Republic's expansion into southern Italy had brought it into direct conflict with the Greek city-states, and the experience gained during the Punic War would prove invaluable in the coming decades. One notable figure who played a crucial role in this period was Appius Claudius Caecus, a patrician statesman and military leader who served as censor in 312 BCE. Caecus's vision for Rome's future included the construction of the Appian Way, a major road that would connect Rome to Capua and facilitate the movement of troops and trade goods. The late 3rd century BCE also saw the rise of the First Punic War, a conflict between Rome and Carthage that would last from 264 to 241 BCE. The war was sparked by Rome's intervention in the affairs of the Italian city of Messina, which had been occupied by Carthaginian forces. The Roman Republic's decision to send an expeditionary force to Sicily marked a significant turning point in its history, as it would be the first time that Roman troops would be deployed outside of the Italian peninsula. The war would prove to be a brutal and costly one, with both sides suffering heavy losses. One notable figure who played a crucial role in the First Punic War was Gaius Duilius, a Roman consul who won a significant victory over the Carthaginians at the Battle of Mylae in 260 BCE. Duilius's use of the Corbus, a boarding bridge that allowed Roman troops to grapple and board enemy ships, proved to be a game-changer in naval warfare. The Romans' ability to adapt and innovate would serve them well in the coming decades as they faced off against increasingly powerful foes. As the First Punic War drew to a close, Rome found itself facing a new challenge, the threat posed by the Illyrian pirates who infested the Adriatic Sea. In 22-9 BCE, the Roman Republic launched a series of campaigns against the Illyrians, with the goal of securing the sea lanes and protecting Italian trade. The Romans' use of naval power and diplomacy would prove to be effective in this campaign, as they were able to negotiate a series of treaties with the Illyrian cities and secure their cooperation. The late 3rd century BCE also saw significant developments in Roman governance and society. The plebeian class continued to push for greater representation and equality, and in 287 BCE, the Hortensian Law was passed, which allowed for the passage of laws by the plebeian assembly without the need for senatorial approval. This marked a significant milestone in the struggle for social and economic reform, as it gave the plebeians a greater say in the governance of the republic. This development was closely tied to the ongoing conflicts with Carthage, as the Roman Republic sought to expand its territories and secure its position in the Mediterranean. In 2190 BCE, the Romans launched a campaign against the Illyrian city of Pharos, which had been a thorn in their side for years. The Roman consul, Lucius Aemilius Paulus, led the expedition and successfully captured the city, dealing a significant blow to the Illyrian pirates who had been terrorizing Italian trade. The following year, in 2180 BCE, the Second Punic War broke out between Rome and Carthage. The war was sparked by the actions of Hannibal, the brilliant Carthaginian general who had been appointed to command the Carthaginian forces in Spain. Hannibal's invasion of Italy, which began with his famous crossing of the Alps with war elephants, caught the Romans off guard and led to a series of devastating defeats. The Roman consul, Publius Cornelius Scipio, was defeated at the Battle of the Ticinus, and his colleague, Tiberius Sempronius Longus, suffered a crushing defeat at the Battle of the Trebia. Despite these setbacks, the Romans refused to give up. In 2170 BCE, the Roman consul, Gaius Flaminius, led an army against Hannibal, but was defeated at the Battle of Lake Trasimene. The Roman Senate, realizing that a new approach was needed, appointed Quintus Fabius Maximus as dictator. Fabius adopted a cautious strategy, avoiding direct confrontations with Hannibal and instead focusing on harassing his supply lines and wearing him down through a series of small skirmishes. Meanwhile, in Spain, the Roman brothers Publius and Gnaeus Scipio were leading a successful campaign against the Carthaginians. In 2150 BCE, they defeated the Carthaginian general Hasdrubal at the Battle of Dertosa, securing a significant victory for Rome. The Scipio's success in Spain was crucial, as it prevented Hannibal from receiving reinforcements and supplies from Carthage. As the war dragged on, the Romans began to gain the upper hand, and Hannibal's army was slowly but surely being worn down. As the war dragged on, Hannibal's army was slowly but surely being worn down by the Fabian strategy, and the Roman victories in Spain were further weakening the Carthaginian position. In 21-2 BCE, the Roman consul, Appius Claudius Pulcher, led a successful campaign against the Carthaginians in Sicily, capturing the strategic city of Agrigentum and securing a significant victory for Rome. Meanwhile, the Scipio brothers continued to press their advantage in Spain, defeating the Carthaginian general, Hasdrubal, once again at the Battle of the Ebro River. In 2111 BCE, the Romans launched a daring raid on the Carthaginian port city of New Carthage, capturing the city and securing a significant prize. The Roman commander, Publius Cornelius Scipio, had devised a clever plan to capture the city, using a combination of naval and land forces to outmaneuver the Carthaginian defenders. The capture of New Carthage was a significant blow to the Carthaginians, as it gave the Romans control of the strategic port and access to the rich resources of Spain. As the war turned in favor of the Romans, Hannibal's position in Italy became increasingly precarious. In 2110 BCE, the Roman consul, Marcus Claudius Marcellus, led a successful campaign against the Carthaginians in southern Italy, capturing the cities of Capua and Tarentum and securing a significant victory for Rome. Meanwhile, the Roman commander, Quintus Fabius Maximus, continued to harass Hannibal's supply lines, using his cavalry to raid and disrupt the Carthaginian lines of communication. In 29 BCE, the Romans launched a major campaign against the Carthaginians in Spain, with the goal of driving them out of the peninsula once and for all. The Roman commander, Publius Cornelius Scipio, led a large army into Spain, where he defeated the Carthaginian general Hasdrubal at the Battle of Baecula. Although the battle was not a decisive victory, it marked a significant turning point in the war, as the Romans had finally gained the upper hand in Spain. As the Carthaginians struggled to maintain their position in Spain, Hannibal's army in Italy was facing increasing pressure from the Romans. The Roman commander, Gaius Claudius Nero, led a large army into southern Italy, where he defeated Hannibal's brother Hasdrubal at the Battle of the Metaurus River. The battle was a decisive victory for the Romans, as they had finally defeated the Carthaginian army in Italy and secured control of the peninsula. In 26 BCE, The Roman commander, Publius Cornelius Scipio, led a successful campaign against the Carthaginians in Spain, capturing the city of Gades and securing a significant victory for Rome. Meanwhile, the Roman consul, Lucius Aemilius Paulus, led a major campaign against the Carthaginians in Italy, with the goal of driving them out of the peninsula once and for all. In 25 BCE, the Romans launched a major invasion of Africa, with the goal of defeating the Carthaginians on their home soil. The Roman commander, Publius Cornelius Scipio, led a large army into Africa, where he formed an alliance with the Numidian king, Massinissa, and began to march towards Carthage. The Carthaginians, realizing that their position was desperate, recalled Hannibal from Italy and prepared to face the Romans in a final, decisive battle. As the Roman army approached Carthage, the Carthaginians mobilized their forces for a last-ditch defense of their city. In 24 BCE, the Romans launched a major campaign against the Carthaginians, capturing the city of Utica and securing a significant victory for Rome. Meanwhile, Hannibal's army was gathering in the vicinity of Zama, where they prepared to face the Romans in a final, decisive battle. In 2002 BCE, the Roman army, led by Publius Cornelius Scipio, clashed with Hannibal's forces at the Battle of Zama, a small town in modern-day Tunisia. The Carthaginian general had been recalled from Italy to lead the defense of his homeland, and he was determined to defeat the Romans on African soil. However, Scipio's tactical genius and the bravery of his troops proved too much for Hannibal's army. The Roman legionaries formed a triple line, with the Hastati in front, followed by the Principes and the Triarii at the rear. As the Carthaginian war elephants charged, the Romans opened their ranks, allowing the beasts to pass through, and then closed in behind them, attacking from the sides and rear. The Roman cavalry, led by Massinissa's Numidian horsemen, played a crucial role in the battle, outflanking the Carthaginian horse and attacking Hannibal's infantry from the rear. The Carthaginian phalanx formation, which had served them so well in Italy, proved ineffective against the more flexible Roman tactics. As the day wore on, the Carthaginian lines began to waver, and eventually they broke, fleeing in disarray. Hannibal himself escaped, but his army was defeated, and the Romans had won a decisive victory. The Battle of Zama marked the end of the Second Punic War, and Carthage was forced to sue for peace. The terms of the treaty were harsh. Carthage lost all its territories outside Africa, including Spain and Corsica, and was forced to pay a massive indemnity to Rome. Hannibal, who had once been hailed as a hero in Carthage, was now seen as a liability, and he fled to the court of Antiochus III of Syria, where he would continue to plot against Rome. In the aftermath of Zama, Scipio returned to Rome, where he was greeted as a hero. He was awarded a triumph, and his name became synonymous with victory and military genius. The Roman Republic had emerged from the Second Punic War stronger and more confident than ever before, with a newfound sense of its own power and capabilities. However, the war had also left deep scars, and the Romans would never forget the terror inspired by Hannibal's invasion of Italy. As Rome basked in the glory of its victory, it also began to turn its attention to other parts of the Mediterranean. The Seleucid Empire, which had been founded by one of Alexander the Great's generals, was beginning to expand into Asia Minor and the Aegean, posing a threat to Roman interests in the region. The Romans would soon find themselves embroiled in a new conflict, this time against Antiochus III, who would prove to be a formidable foe. In 200 BCE, the Romans sent an embassy to Antiochus, warning him not to interfere with their allies in Greece and Asia Minor. However, Antiochus was undeterred, and he continued to expand his empire, conquering many of the city-states of Asia Minor and the Aegean. The Romans, who had been watching these developments with growing concern, eventually decided to take action, and in 1999 BCE, they declared war on the Seleucid Empire. In 1980 BCE, the Romans launched a campaign against Antiochus III, led by Titus Quinctius Flamininus, who would later become a key figure in Roman politics. The Roman army sailed to Greece, where they formed an alliance with the Aetolian League, a confederation of city-states that had long been at odds with Macedon. Flamininus's strategy was to defeat Antiochus's forces in Greece before they could march on Italy, and he began by capturing the strategic port city of Chalcis. Meanwhile, Antiochus III had assembled a massive army, including war elephants and mercenary troops from across his empire. He marched into Greece, intent on crushing the Roman-Aetolian alliance and asserting his dominance over the region. The two armies clashed at the Battle of Thermopylae in 1991 BCE, where Flamininus's tactical genius and the bravery of his troops proved decisive. The Seleucid army was defeated, and Antiochus III was forced to retreat back to Asia Minor. The Romans pursued Antiochus into Asia Minor, where they won a series of victories against his forces. In 1900 BCE, the Roman consul Lucius Cornelius Scipio, brother of Publius Cornelius Scipio Africanus, defeated Antiochus at the Battle of Magnesia, shattering the Seleucid army and forcing Antiochus to sue for peace. The Treaty of Apamea, signed in 1880 BCE, imposed harsh terms on the Seleucid Empire, including the loss of all its territories in Asia Minor and a massive indemnity to Rome. The Roman victory over Antiochus III marked the beginning of a new era of Roman dominance in the Mediterranean. The Romans had emerged as the preeminent power in the region, with a vast empire that stretched from Spain to Syria. However, this newfound power also created new challenges and tensions within the Roman Republic. The wealth and prestige gained from conquests abroad created new social and economic divisions at home, as the old aristocracy struggled to maintain its power and influence in the face of rising new families and interests. As the 2nd century BCE drew to a close, Rome faced a series of internal crises and conflicts that would ultimately threaten the stability of the Republic. The Gracchian reforms, led by the brothers Tiberius and Gaius Gracchus, aimed to address the growing inequality and social unrest in Rome by redistributing land and power to the common people. However, these reforms were met with fierce resistance from the aristocracy, leading to a series of violent confrontations and ultimately the tragic deaths of both brothers. The fall of the Gracchi marked the beginning of a period of increasing instability and violence in Roman politics, as various factions and interests vied for power and influence. The rise of powerful generals like Marius and Sulla, who would eventually clash in a bloody civil war, created new tensions and divisions within the Republic. As the 1st century BCE began, Rome stood at a crossroads, its future uncertain and its very survival threatened by the internal conflicts and external pressures that had been building for decades. In 1007 BCE, the Roman consul Gaius Marius launched a series of reforms aimed at strengthening the Roman army and addressing the social and economic problems that had been plaguing the Republic. Marius's reforms created a more professional and effective military, but they also exacerbated the existing tensions between the aristocracy and the common people. The rise of the equestrian class, a new group of wealthy businessmen and landowners, further complicated the social and political landscape of Rome. As the 1st century BCE wore on, the Roman Republic became increasingly dominated by powerful individuals and factions, each vying for control and influence. The Optimates, a faction of conservative aristocrats, clashed with the Populares, a faction of reform-minded politicians who sought to address the social and economic problems of the common people. The rise of charismatic leaders like Julius Caesar, who would eventually cross the Rubicon and spark a civil war that would change the course of Roman history forever, marked the beginning of the end of the Roman Republic as it had been known for centuries. In 88 BCE, the Roman consul Lucius Cornelius Sulla marched on Rome with his legions, marking the first time in Roman history that a general had used his army to seize control of the city. The death of Sulla in 78 BCE marked the beginning of a new era of instability and conflict, as various factions and interests vied for power and influence in the wake of his dictatorship. The rise of Pompey the Great, a brilliant and ambitious general who would eventually clash with Julius Caesar, created new tensions and divisions within the Republic. The formation of the First Triumvirate, an alliance between Pompey, Crassus, and Caesar, marked the beginning of a new era of cooperation and competition among Rome's most powerful leaders. However, this alliance was ultimately doomed to fail, as the ambitions and interests of its members proved incompatible. In 49 BCE, Julius Caesar crossed the Rubicon River with his legions, sparking a civil war that would change the course of Roman history forever. The death of Pompey in 48 BCE marked the end of the Optimates and the beginning of Caesar's dictatorship. However, Caesar's reign was short-lived, as he was assassinated by a group of senators on the Ides of March in 44 BCE. The death of Julius Caesar marked the end of the Roman Republic, as it had been known for centuries. The rise of his adopted son Octavian, who would eventually become the Emperor Augustus, marked the beginning of a new era of imperial rule in Rome. The Roman Empire, which would last for centuries and shape the course of Western civilization, was born from the ashes of the Roman Republic. Its legacy forever changed by the conflicts and crises that had plagued it in its final years. And yet, the Republic's ultimate demise serves as a poignant reminder that even the greatest of civilizations are not immune to the corrosive forces of corruption, ambition, and division. Thank you for joining me throughout this historical journey. That's all for today's History with Herodotus. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, remember that, to understand the present, we must first understand the past.